This is kind of a pretty common vocal chain that I use, and it's kind of a long vocal chain. But so let's start with this. So I'm using
slowly grind away the innocent.
The first thing I put on here is just an oxide plugin and tape simulator, and set it at to 7.5 speed. It's kind of warming up.
Slowly grind away the innocent.
Here's without it.
Slowly grind away the innocent.
Just trying to warm up a little of the top of this thing. So that's why I've set it to 7.5 setting. The next plugin I'm using is FabFilter de-esser. I'm just using that I use this just on a wide band setting and just barely hitting some of the top.
Slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence, erase the photographs. If you can choke down the laughs and advertise the bruises and the lows.
So I'm going to use a combination of that, a couple of compressors, and it's going to be 2 different compressors, 2 de-essers. They're doing slightly different things. Let me get this first compressor in here, which is the 1176.
Slowly grind away the innocence. If you can
mid-attack, fast release.
Erase the photographs. If you can choke down the laughs and advertise the bruises.
Maybe compressing down 4 or 5 dB. And then there's a second de-esser, which is set pretty narrow, just to really catch the big S's.
The innocence. If you can hide the evidence, erase the photographs. If you can choke down the laughs and
I'm compressing this vocal pretty hard on this, but also trying to keep the S's within reason. And the best way I found to do that is I'm using the wideband. I can use subtle, and then just using the second UA one on a really narrow band and just really go for those. Just really kind of search out that 6 to 7K S that's really taking your head off. And then I'm usually using an SSL just for a little EQ on this.
Slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence, erase the photographs.
I'm usually pushing a little at 8K. The 3 ranges I boost at all would be like maybe 8, 4K, and 2.5K. So depending on the vocal and how edgy it needs to be or how bright it was recorded, I'll be using more or less of these, but
slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence, erase the photographs. If you can choke down the laughs and advertise the bruises.
And then I'll use a Pultec EQ, kind of the same thing we were doing with the bass, only at 100 cycles. Just add a little of that proximity effect with the mic.
Slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence, erase the photographs. If you can choke down the laughs and advertise.
And let's leave this EQ off for a minute. And then the last thing I will probably use is I'll put this LA2A on at the end of the chain. There.
Slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence.
So I use that and the 1176 together. Depending on the song and the vocalist, I'm using more of one or more of the other, but I usually find a good happy medium for those. I just like the kind of final smoothness that LA2A can add to a vocal.
Slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence, erase the photographs. If you can choke down the laughs.
And then I'm gonna put just a decapitator on here really light as well. Just add a little more grunge to this vocal. I'm gonna do a couple different effects on this just to start with. Let's do like a tape slap.
Slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence, erase the photographs. If you can choke down the light.
So I'm just doing like a 7.5 IPS tape slap, filtering the bottom off at 251 and maybe the top end at say 3K, something like that.
Slowly grind away the innocence. If you
and
slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence.
And I'm gonna use this EM250 for a plate. It's kind of this is a pretty dark vocal plate sound on this, and I'm gonna try that for starters just to see on this verse. I'll probably get something brighter, more aggressive in the chorus, but
slowly grind away the innocence. If you can hide the evidence, erase the photographs. If you can choke down